Hey everybody, it's GauntletX, and welcome to my final early access premiere draft of Brothers War. I'd like to thank Wizards of the Coast once again for providing me with all of the cards that you see today, the access to this early access account. Without further ado, let's hop into the draft of this super sweet format. A lot of really cool things in the format. Powerstones that are these little tokens that help you cast your artifact spells and your abilities. There's the prototype mechanic where you can cast a really big creature for a cheaper, smaller version. And one thing that's going to be really important here, the retro framed artifacts, a reprint of a very classic, iconic, or powerful artifact from Magic's history, is in every single pack with the retro border, and ours in this pack is incredibly good, and it's what we're going to take. Phyrexian Processor. 4 mana for an artifact that lets us pay any amount of life when it comes into play, and then for 4 mana we can tap it and create an XX, where X is the amount of life paid as it entered the battlefield. So if we play this early game and we're not under any pressure, we can just spend 4 mana, pay 5 life or something, and then get a 5/5 every turn for the rest of the game for 4 mana. Pretty hard to beat. Phyrexian Processor is a great card, and I'm happy to pick one pack one it, because not only is it super powerful, but it's going to fit into any deck. So pick 2, we have an excellent removal spell here that plays pretty well with any activated abilities like that on Phyrexian Processor. That is the Static Net. 3 and a white to exile an on-land permanent and opponent controls until it leaves the battlefield, and when it enters the battlefield, you gain 2 life and get a tapped Powerstone, and we can use that Powerstone not only to cast our artifact spells, but also to help pay for mana costs like the ability on Phyrexian Processor. So Static Net, great piece of removal, seems like a great place to go after the Phyrexian Processor, and it's what I'm going to scoop up here. Pack 1, pick 3, if we go for a super artifact-heavy deck, Lodestone Golem could be a pretty fun build-around, a 4-mana 5/3 that makes non-artifacts cost 1 more to cast. It's also good at just taxing opponents who generally have more expensive spells than you in the first place. So if you're just an aggressive deck with a bunch of really cheap spells, you don't get hit too hard by the additional mana cost of the Lodestone Golem. Pretty fun here. We can just roll with as many retro artifacts as possible in today's deck. This is at the end of a batch recording session. All of these were recorded during the one 24-hour long early access event. So at this point, I've been playing Magic for upwards of 8 hours. So I'm getting pretty worn out mentally. So this gives my brain a little bit of a break here. That's why I'm also not like super looking at every card in the pack, just finding things that seem pretty good to me. And yeah, Lodestone Golem seems pretty good to me. Pack 1, pick 4. I do like Arbalest Engineers a lot. I've played with this before. Being able to create a tapped Powerstone off of your 3-drop is great. That's why I think the green common, the 3-mana 3/2 that makes a Powerstone, is just absurd. That's just a really, really good common. We're not really tied to any color yet. We just have a single white card. Could also take Overwhelming Remorse. This is very efficient removal, very good. It's instant speed, it costs 1 less for each creature in your graveyard. It's a little more open than the Engineers is. And it's possible that we get to play Overwhelming Remorse and Static Net in the same deck, at least a lot easier than it would be to play Engineers and Static Net in the same deck. I'll just take Overwhelming Remorse, one of the strongest cards in this pack. It's between the Remorse and the Engineers, most likely. They both seem really good. Over the Top is like a commander-focused rare. It doesn't do much in 1v1. Okay, pack 1, pick 5. Another great instant speed black removal spell here, Disfigure. Good at killing small stuff, and you can use it as a combat trick during combat against larger creatures. So very efficient. Very good card here. I've played against some nasty aggro decks in this format, so you're not always going to play against just a bunch of massive creatures that don't die to Disfigure. I think it's still very playable, even though the format is somewhat focused around Powerstone tokens and like massive creatures. They're still really powerful, really synergistic aggro decks that Disfigure can help try to peel apart. Pack 1, pick 6 now. Big fan of the Goring Warplow. It gives you a pretty solid 2-drop, a 2-mana 1/1 Death Toucher that turns into a decently sized beefy creature if you draw it in the late game, a 6-mana 5/4 Death Touch. It's like the Feral Abomination from original Dominaria, but way more flexible. Much better. So I'll take the Goring Warplow here. We are pretty heavily committed to black. We have a Warplow, an Overwhelming Remorse, and a Disfigure. but in white we only have static net, so we can still be very open to just taking the strongest card in the pack. If there's something really good in a color we don't have any cards of yet, we could end up in black and that color, so move to black red, black green, or black blue instead. Okay, here we have a pretty solid black card, Carrion Locust, a 3-mana 2/1 flyer that also just gives you main deck hate for Unearth cards. Unearth is a mechanic that lets you recast the card with Unearth from your graveyard, and then you exile it during the end step. So it's primarily on artifact creatures in this format, but there's some non-creature artifacts that have it as well. So this is good against Unearth cards. It's played pretty fine for me, so I'll take it here. Transmigrant Altar is really nice if you have good build-arounds for it, but you do need to build around it for sure. Pretty slow otherwise. I don't think I'm going to try to do that here. I guess I'm not missing much without Locust, but I have not gotten the Transmigrant Altar to work super well personally. I've definitely played against some Transmigrant Altars that have popped off, but I haven't managed to get it working. None of the off-color cards are tremendously powerful here. There's some solid ones like Giant Growth and the Penrigan Strongbull. This is a really good way to just start throwing your Power Stones at your opponent's face. But yeah, it's not like super good, and I think that Gixian Skullflayer is actually pretty sweet. 3 mana for a 2/3 at the beginning of your upkeep. If there are 3 or more creatures in your grave, you put a +1/+1 counter on it. So just a little bit of self-mill in a creature-heavy deck, and this gets going real quickly. So Skullflayer seems really cool. And one of the best cards in this pack is the Thraxodemon. 2 mana for a 2/2. You're just going to play it, trade it off like normal most of the time, but some games you'll have this sitting around late game, and everything that you have that makes a Power Stone token all of a sudden draws you a card. So Thraxodemon's pretty nice. Scoop that up here. Definitely heavy into black. This is going to work really well if we can pick up some Corrupts. Corrupt is an uncommon in this format for 6 mana that deals X damage to any target, where X is the number of swamps you control. You also get to gain that much life, so Corrupt is a huge reason to try to play mono black. We're already heading in that direction without too much difficulty. I mean, even Trench Stalker, one of the better cards in this pack, a 5 mana 4/5 is not a bad stat line, and if you can trigger the draw card ability, where like just draw 1 extra card during your turn and then you've drawn 2, then this is a lifelinker till end of turn, and a 5 mana 4/5 lifelinker would just be an incredibly good card. So we'll take a Trench Stalker here. If we can get some cantrips, some cards that just say draw a card on them, that will be excellent. But Killzone Acrobat is fine and nothing incredible off color, so stick to as close to mono black as we can here. Leaves us open to running a lot of Corrupts if we pick them up. We got that Commander rare still in this pack. I'm not going to play a Tower Worker, so I'll take the card I think is probably the best in the widest variety of decks, which is the Penrigan Strongbull. And also red-black is kind of an artifact sack strategy, so we push into red, the Strongbull is actually going to do some work here. Rock Hunters, whatever. The Argivian Avengers, probably playable if you're a monocolor deck. I mean, like, you choose what you need it to be. It's a 4/4 flyer whenever you need a flyer. Give it Death Touch out of nowhere when you need the Death Touch. Alright, pack 2, pick 1. What do we have? We have a Scrapwork Rager, which is a really good way to trigger our Trench Stalker. This is also just a really good value play, and while I love Goring Warplow, I already have one of those, so this is probably what I'm going to take here. There are other pretty good options, like we can move into a second color here, maybe commit to like white-black here by taking this Combat Thresher. This is another card that triggers the Trench Stalker, but I do like the idea of trying to just like commit to mono black and just get every Corrupt that passes by. Feels like a pretty powerful spot to be. And we're not going to wheel a Scrapwork Rager, we're not going to wheel a Combat Thresher, and Scrapwork Rager is the card that we're 100% likely to play because we're 100% on black. I don't know if I want to play a second color, and if I do play a second color, it's possible I choose red instead of white. So I'm going to go for Scrapwork Rager. Scrap Trawler is a cool card from the retro artifacts, but I don't know, maybe it's great. Just don't have the mind energy to think through that one right now. A lot of stuff going on here, so... pack 2, pick 2. Pristine Talisman's pretty great. Gain a life every turn. And it mana ramps you. Zephyr Sentinel's busted. This card's way too good. 2 mana for a 2/1 flash flyer is already good. This also bounces one of your creatures when it comes into play, so you get to save a creature from a removal spell or redo a creature's enter the battlefield effect. And if you bounce a soldier, it's a 2 mana 3/2 flash flyer, which is completely absurd. This card is dumb. Evangel of Synthesis works really well with the Trench Stalker that we've picked up, but it would force us to be in blue-black instead of mono-black here. I don't know, Pristine Talisman's like good, but probably not like incredible. Got a lot that costs more than 3. I'm going to take the Talisman here. I'm going to get silly with it. We're just going mono-black retro artifacts today, I suppose. Love the Goring Warplow. Could take another one here for sure. Could also take Energy Refractor, and this lets me splash in the off-color cards without even needing like planes and stuff, which is kind of cute. Emergency Weld is a very good deal. 2 mana to return any artifact or creature from your grave to hand and make a 1/1. So 2 mana 1/1 Gravedigger. I like the Weld a lot. I'll probably take it over the Warplow here, or the Refractor. Symmetry Matrix is interesting, but it requires a little bit too much brain power in terms of building around it, taking as many cards with equal power and toughness as possible for my brain right now, so I'm just not going to worry about it and take Emergency Weld instead. Ichor Wellspring is very, very cool if you have other ways to sacrifice artifacts. So 2 mana for an artifact that draws a card when it comes into play, and then if you could sacrifice it to something like Thraxodemon, or something like the Paragon Strongbow, then you get to draw another card off of it, which is really good. And there's nothing super good for mono black here, so I'll just take it. That could be fun if we go the red-black route. Getting like no black cards from this direction. This is pretty unfortunate for what we're trying to do. The best card here is probably our Gothian Opportunist. I think this card's nuts. 3 mana for a 3/2 and you get a Powerstone into play tapped. I guess it's not nuts, but it's pretty good. Spotter Thopter is also pretty good. Scry equal to its power when it comes into play. It's a 4 mana 2/3 flyer or an 8 mana 4/5 flyer, so it's nice and flexible. Swiftfoot Boots is probably bad and limited. Obviously a Commander All-Star, but not adding any power toughness to the creature, just giving hexproof, so it's still just going to trade off into something. Just take an Opportunist, but probably not playing green, but again, we're not committed at all to a second color here. I like Elsewhere Flask a lot to combo with the cards that care about what basic lands you have. There's a card like Corrupt in every color. So a card that cares about what basic land, how many swamps you have, a card that cares about how many mountains you have, a card that cares about how many forests you have. So that's really cute with those, which is fun. It's another retro artifact as well, and worst case scenario, it's 2 mana draw a card. I'm just going to take all the retro artifacts. It doesn't actually really do anything in our deck, or it isn't like super great. I'm probably supposed to push in a green here, take another Opportunist or an Ironclaw Crusher, but we'll just take an Elsewhere Flask. We're just going to be goofy. Another Scrapwork Rager versus a Goring Warplow, both excellent cards in black, and a Thraxodemon, also excellent. Great way to use the Ichor Wellspring. Alright, maybe they're just wearing a lot of black cards because this pack seems beautiful. I think I'm taking another Scrapwork Rager. This just seems like one of the most consistent cards for the strategy. Really good with the Trench Stalker. Like no matter what's going on, we're pretty happy with this. Although Warplow's really consistent as well, just hits less like synergy. Okay, another Thraxodemon or a Trench Stalker, both look great. Thraxodemon again going to make this Ichor Wellspring a lot better. Trench Stalker going to make the double Rager better. I feel like these Trench Stalkers are probably going to go really late, but Thraxodemons might as well. I don't know. I'm going to take a Thraxodemon here. We definitely need to have enough 2-drops in right now. I don't want to count non-creature cards there. Right now we only have 2. Because Emergency Weld, we can't play it on turn 2. We have to wait till another creature dies. Okay, never mind. There just weren't any black cards in those packs because we're getting great commons at this point. We have a Goring Warplow versus Trench Stalker, both phenomenal. Double Rager, double Demon. Trench Stalker feels real nice with those, but I really love the flexibility of the Warplow. And again, I guess I really don't know. It is still day 1 of the format. It's day -5 of the format. It's the early access event. I don't know which is going to go later, but luckily, we'll just get both. Now we get our Trench Stalker. Here's Flow of Knowledge. Do I want to splash in a Flow of Knowledge off of a single Elsewhere flask? Is that how goofy I'm getting today? Maybe. Maybe. Because I sack the Elsewhere flask and I just decide all my lands are islands till end of turn, and then I Flow of Knowledge and draw like 5 cards minimum. That's so silly. It's almost definitely bad, but it's so goofy. I want to do it. I want to do it so bad. If I can't get past a Corrupt, then I'll play a Flow of Knowledge in my mono black deck. This all looks like nonsense. I guess I'll take the equipment. We have a complete deck right now. Obviously, we need to cut some of these off-color cards, but every pick we make in pack 3 can just be focused on making what we have a little better. Should be pretty cool. Super into this pile. Super into this pile. Probably 2 into this pile. Alright, last pick Thraxodemon. Don't mind if I do. Alright then. Absolutely gonna take that and run with it. Gigamole seems like probably the best black card in this pack. 4 mana for a 2/3. It mills you 3 cards, then you get to return a creature that you milled back to your hand. Moment of Defiance is a fun combat trick. +2/+1 lifelink and you draw a card. So if you put this on, Lodestone Golem, that's a huge life swing. Gain 7 life, draw a card, and maybe win a combat that you weren't going to otherwise. Here's the Silex it's a white card, so I'm mono black. I'm committing. I'm not interested. I'll take a Gigamole, I suppose. We're not going to get any Corrupts. We have like the perfect mono black deck minus the Corrupts. Sad day. We have some cards that can definitely use self-mill really well, so Gnawing Vermin to mill ourselves too seems good. Right, because we have Unearth cards from Scrapwork Rager. We have Graveyard Recursion from Emergency Weld. Although I don't have a lot of removal, Powerstone Fracture might be good. Sacrifice an artifact or creature to destroy a creature or planeswalker. This is good sacrificing our Wellspring or one of our dorky early game creatures. I'm not that high on removal. I'd love to wheel the Skull Flare, but I feel like that doesn't happen. It's probably Powerstone Fracture and Gnawing Vermin. Both seem very nice. I'll take the Powerstone Fracture. I feel like I might not have enough removal right now. And we get the best removal spell in the format. Come on in, Overwhelming Remorse. Pretty sick looking mono black card here. Gruesome Realization. Draw 2 cards, lose 2 life, or give everything -1/-1 until end of turn. And that's only your opponent's creatures, so if you have a bunch of 1/1s, they'll be safe. Pretty cool. I'm into it. We get Evolving Wilds in the monocolor deck. Thraxodemon, we already have 3. Gigamole, we've already got 1, and we have 4 mana creatures already, so Realization it'll be. Join the party. Probably going to cut this Elsewhere flask, because I'm not going to do the blue card in here, so let's drop that. 24 cards, 16 lands is what it looks like right now. The curve is great because it's flexible. The Warplow is a top-end card and an early game card. Another Gixian Skullflare. I already have double Warplow. I don't feel like I need a third that bad, and Skullflare is pretty exciting to me. Got some cards that can work with it well. The Gigamole and a little bit of Sacrifice going on with it. I'm going to try to get these Skullflares to work. We'll see how it pans out for us. Nothing in black here. I could take a second Flow of Knowledge and then 2 ways to Elsewhere Flask. No, let's not. Let's just take another Retro Frame Artifact, shall we? This is, again, part of the Early Access event. Thank you very much to Wizards of the Coast for providing me with this account. So it does not matter what I take, because I won't be keeping any of these cards. They're just for the draft today. Then I'll be back to my normal peasant Magic Arena account. I've got a lot of stuff on my account. I shouldn't joke. I have drafted on Arena for a long time. I've got like a whole... Oh, we got there. We got past the 1 Corrupt that was opened up in this draft pod, most likely. There might have been one like pack 1 early on that I just passed up on when I wasn't dedicating myself to mono black, but it's the only one that was open pack 3, that's for sure, because it got to us pick 8. We'll take it. Now the deck is infinitely better. Corrupt is the #1 reason to try to play mono black. Phenomenal card if you are mono black, and still pretty good if you're just like a 10 swamp deck. The only sacrifice I have is from Thraxidemon, right? So this card's going to play really slow, but it's the only black card. Still going to put it in this sideboard here, though. Take a look at our creature versus non-creature. 7 creatures, 10 non-creatures. We do not need that many creatures, but we don't want that many fewer because we want a good high count for the double Skull Flare. We wield the Vermin. I'd rather have a Vermin than a 3rd Skull Flare because I want more ways to self-mill to get that to trigger more consistently. So I'll take the Vermin here. And I think I want to cut 1 or 2 creatures and then a bunch of non-creature stuff. So we take the gnawing vermin. Now I'm probably cutting Powerstone Fracture, honestly. Because I have Corrupt, double Overwhelming Remorse. Disfigure for removal. Feels pretty good. Not going to play any of this. What else do I want to cut? Pristine Talisman. I'm not ramping into that much like big stuff, so I probably do want Gigamole with double Skull Flare. That feels good. See, I cut some random creatures now. What are the worst creatures? Lodestone Golem. Actually might end up being a cut here. Because I'm not that artifact heavy. And I've got some big late game plays like Trench Stalkers. I really don't want to tax myself into having to cast a Trench Stalker for 6 mana or anything like that. So we might not be like the dream artifact aggro Lodestone Golem deck anymore. So that could be a cut. Triple Thraxidemon also feels like a lot. Probably cut one of those. Or double Locust. Actually, Acrobat. Yeah, that doesn't do much. I want to try out this Avenger. It doesn't look super good to me, but I do want to try it. So let's cut the Lodestone Golem and an Acrobat, and then we still need to cut 2 more cards. I'll cut one of these Thraxidemons, but I still want a couple ways to sack this Wellspring. Gotta find somewhere to cut 1 more card. Maybe I cut one of these Locusts. Doesn't synergize with our deck at all. It's kind of just in here just because I think it's good against Unearth cards when we pair up against them. We don't have any other flyers though, so I don't want to have to use removal on flyers every single time. So being able to just trade into a 2/2 flyer feels not bad. For a lot of the flyers that I can think of in this format get like really big. The main one being like the blue common with Prowess. That could easily beat my Carrion Locust anyway. Best it's doing is trading. Maybe we run a 0 flyer deck here, cut 2 Locusts, put another Thraxidemon back in. That would be as focused on synergy as possible, because then we have the 3 ways to sack the Wellspring that we have in here. I could also just cut the Wellspring itself to put one of those flyers back in, or put both back in, cutting a Thraxidemon. I mean, that's honestly probably the safe pick, because 3 Thraxidemons alone, probably not enough to make Wellspring great. It would be fine, though, because 2 mana draw card's not horrible. You do ideally want to get more out of it, though. Yeah, we'll cut the Wellspring and a Thraxidemon and put the flyers back in. And then we're not that worried that we don't have many sack outlets, because we don't have any cards that need to be sacrificed to be good. We just have a very consistent mono-black strategy. This is going to be the deck. Alright, here's a look at the completed deck, the final early access Brothers War Premier Draft deck that we will be playing. This is a mono-black self-mill strategy. It looks really, really fun and really consistent, and I'm very excited to get into the gameplay. We have Gnawing Vermin to hit the board early and mill ourselves, to work with cards like Gixian Skull Flare that gets a +1/+1 counter during our upkeep if we control, or if we have 3 or more creature cards in our graveyard. We also have 2 Ravenous Gigamoles that do a little bit of self-milling there as well. That can help out with that card, which is pretty sweet. We can also just trade off little 1/1 Death Touchers from the Goring Warplows, trade off some Thraxidemons or sack some creatures to get those triggering, and we've got a really consistent curve. Another pretty nice synergy we have is 2 copies of Trench Stalker, 5 mana 4/5, not a bad body for the mana cost. That is really good if you've drawn an extra card this turn, so the ways to do that in this deck are 2 copies of Scrapwork Rager. All I have to do is play a Scrapwork Rager during my turn, and I will have drawn 2 cards in that turn to have lifelink on the Trench Stalker, and 2 Thraxodemons, where I can sacrifice a creature or an artifact to draw a card. That will also trigger the Trench Stalker. And just a straight up draw spell, the Gruesome Realization will work as well. With the self-mill, we also have a little bit of graveyard recursion with Emergency Weld to pick back any artifact or creature from our grave and put it back in our hand. And we have a couple Unearth cards with the double Scrapwork Rager, so that seems pretty sweet. Other than that, a pile of great removal, Disfigure, double Overwhelming Remorse, and the big one, Corrupt, a removal spell that also gains us 1,000,000 life in a mono black deck or shoots our opponent in the face for 1,000,000 mana. Really, really good for mono black. And the biggest bomb in the entire deck are Pack 1, Pick 1, the central processing unit itself, the Phyrexian Processor. When this enters the battlefield, we pay any amount of life. So if we're not under too much stress in terms of our life total early game, we can pay just a massive amount of life and then just get if we pay 7 life or something, just get a 7/7 every single turn. Should be pretty hard to beat. So pretty excited for this deck. Super, super pumped to see how it does. But yeah, let's get into the gameplay for the final early access Premier Draft. All right, here we go on the play. Game 1, turn 1 Gnawing Vermin. We'll just go for it. We've got a turn 3 Gruesome Realization to draw some cards. See what we got here. Mill ourselves a little bit. Mill a Thraxodemon, and unfortunately mill the Emergency Weld. That is not great. That is our one piece of recursion that we can cast on anything in the grave. So if we mill something really good like our Phyrexian Processor, we're going to be really sad about it because we don't have the way to return it from grave anymore. Rock Hunter from our opponent. Well, we've got a 1/1 to trade into that. We could also just kill it here. The Gruesome Realization. Vermin's already just good at trading into it. I kind of want to draw 2 cards. I want to make sure I keep hitting mana. I've got a 5 and 6 drop in this hand. So a little sad here, but again, I have the Vermin to block that, so we'll be fine. And it's possible I even try to play the Warplow at 6, but my hand is all 5 and 6 mana stuff now, so I might have to just run out the Warplow depending on what my opponent casts. Maybe they'll play that Exile removal spell in red. You do 4 damage and exile it instead of killing it. That would get the Vermin out of the way and let them attack freely with the Rock Hunter. The audacity. They're going to trample over for a bunch, but at least we kill the Rock Hunter. They do draw a card off of this exchange. Giant Growth. Ooh, very sweet play from our opponent. Just all in here on Rock Hunter to hit us for 1,000,000. Well, we've got double Overwhelming Remorse, so that's probably the plan. That exiles it as well. That doesn't exile Audacity. Audacity is put into the graveyard from the battlefield, so they draw a card, even if I exile that creature. They trample over for 4 if I just go to block it here, so I probably have to Remorse. I don't think there's any hexproof tricks in this format, so I'll just pass. And maybe they throw another enchantment like a Blanchwood Armor on it. Alright, they didn't overcommit. Okay, so they draw their card off Audacity. I'm pretty far down in life total, but if I can get these Trench Stalkers down and just draw 1 card, I can flip life total back up. I can flip the life total back up and just be pretty fine. Reach Death Touch. I'm never going to block that with one of these, so I'll play a Warplow and hold up Remorse. Ready to block that, and if some kind of gigantic trample trick is happening, I can Remorse. Avenger cannot get lifelink. That would have been really, really good if that was one of the abilities. Well, there is a hexproof trick. Put a counter on it, give it reach, trample, hexproof, indestructible. Okay, well that's not cool. I'm out of removal now, but hopefully just 4/5s and 5/5s are big enough to block whatever they got. Can't block that with artifacts, so it's time to play a non-artifact creature. Definitely attack with Warplow since it can't block anyway. And here's a Trench Stalker that can block an Argothian Sprite. If they get to 7 mana, they can start making this bigger every turn, which is a really bad time for me. Opponent just has some really, really big combat tricks and like improvements they can play on their creatures. That's a big flyer. And my deck's real bad against flyers. I think I need to just play a Trench Stalker and try to draw into a Phyrexian Rager here. Could Gigamole and hope to mill one. But then I only have 1 Trench Stalker for life gain. On board, they're attacking me for 4 with this Dragon Engine. I've already played several combat tricks and just ways to make their creatures bigger, so odds of them having another one aren't dramatically high. I think I'm going to play another Trench Stalker, and I am going to hope. Can hit a way to give it lifelink next turn. Because then I'd give them both lifelink, and it would be like impossible to lose if I can trigger them. Let's get a Phyrexian Rager. Scrap Heap Rager. Fingers crossed. Alright, Dragon Engine is coming in. They're going to dump all their mana into it. No, just 2 mana, make it 2 damage. And that is going to kill me real quick. Disfigure is not good enough. When this Ironclaw Crusher attacks, target attacking creature gets +X/+O, where X is its power, so it's going to give the flyer +2 power. That's going to be really, really bad for me. I think I need to be able to just chump block it with the Locust here. I could play Gigamole and hold up this figure, and then I can't quite die next turn. But I'm probably dying pretty quickly. Maybe I attack with both Stalkers, hope they block with Crusher here. And then to block Sprite, I play a Gigamole, hold up at this figure, but then I don't have enough blockers. I probably hold Warplow back to block Crusher. Then I'm going to need to play a creature that can actually block Sprite. Ooh, okay, so if we just kill Crusher here, then we're good. Yes, I just kill Crusher here. I can't die next turn to Dragon Engine. Very cool with that. And then I Gigamole, and we hope to get one of these Phyrexian Rager copies. We did. We got a Scrapwork Rager. That's in the grave. I can unearth it. And I'll put a Thraxidemon in hand. If my opponent cannot exile the Rager from grave, I am guaranteed to gain a ton of life next turn, have the bigger board state, and have this game on lock. That Disfigure coming in clutch. Kill that Prototype. They have one last card in their hand, could be some kind of combat trick here. I don't think Giant Growth quite kills us, so it has to be a really good one. Because if they Giant Growth, that's 3 power, plus 6 mana is 3 more power. So they can make it 8? I'm really bad at math right now. My brain is fried. 7? I think 7 damage maximum if it's Giant Growth. And I have the chump block ready for our Argothian Sprite. That I can survive the double attack. Alright. Sardian Cliff Stomper. It's a thing. Not going to be enough though. Turn the game around with Scrapwork Rager with the double Trench Stalker on board. Down to 6. Now I'm going to gain 8 life. Let's go. And I can play the Thraxidemon post-combat to have another blocker. I think I hold Gigamole back. Not threatening too much down. I mean, they block, take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, I can't threaten lethal here, so I'll play it safe with the Gigamole. Cool. Gain 1,000,000 life. Drop the Thraxidemon pass. And there you have it. Land off the top from our opponent is going to be game 1-0 to start it off. They are going to hit me as much as they can with the Dragon Engine. Send a message. before we end this game here. Hit us down to 8 life. We would have been very dead if we couldn't find the way to trigger the trench stalkers. Alright, here we go on the play for game 2. Awkward hand, it doesn't start till turn 4. Could be worth mulligan. I was gonna say my general rule is if the mana's perfect, I'll keep it, but then I realize we're monocolored. I can probably mulligan more aggressively because literally any lands is perfect mana. Yeah, I probably should have mulled this. It's a really slow hand, but luckily our opponent's not doing anything super fast either. They do have a Boots of the Swiftfoot variety to give anything they play haste if they spend an extra mana as they cast it, but they have to play off curve to do that. Ooh, they got an altar in the sacrifice deck. That could be pretty bad for us. The altar can do some nasty stuff. Oh my god! How risky do I want to be? I'm almost certain we're supposed to just play this right now. Next turn they hit us for like 2 damage. Unless they play another creature, give it haste, they get hit pretty hard. Oh... Probably a bad idea, whatever I choose here. 19, right? 19? I'm gonna go 5. I'm gonna go 5. 4 mana 5/5s for the rest of the game seems like more than enough to win if they can't blow this up. And this way, if they blow it up, I don't just immediately die. I'm still in a bad spot. But at least I don't just literally lose the game on the spot if they blow it up. It's not like I paid like 10 life into it, and then they blew it up, and then it's like, alright, well, GG. It's gonna be really interesting to try to figure out what the correct amount of life to pay on that card is at all times. Hexproof and Ashnod, that's probably really bad for us, right? Whenever they attack, they can sack a creature to get a tapped Powerstone. They can exile creatures from grave to get 3/3s. Interesting. I can use this at instant speed, right? Yes, I can. Oh, we're just going to keep doing that. I can Gruesome Realization Ashnod even though it's got Hexproof. Do that later. Pretty sure I'm supposed to just make 5/5s every single turn. And just pretend I have 1 swamp out right now. We're waiting till we get to 2 mana to Emergency Weld. Like a 5/5 is equally impactful with every other thing I can play here. So we might as well not spend a card. Scrapbook Rager, good value for our opponent. They can sack that to the Ashnod, which is pretty great for them. Honestly, probably trading the 5/5 off for Ashnod. Because I know I can just keep making more and more throughout the game. If they sack the Rager and I don't trade the 5/5 though, I am jamming them in the face for 5 damage, and then I can just Gruesome Realization during my turn to kill Ashnod anyway. Okay, they're not even going to attack. Alright, cool. Makes it very simple. There's a 5/5. These are really cool looking Phyrexian minions. I'm a big fan of that. I like just a little unhappy face. Probably not great for those with trypophobia, but I think it's kind of cute. It's definitely cool. There is the altar. So my opponent can try to set up their whole machine here with all its whirring parts to try to beat my 1 Phyrexian processor, my busted mythic. And maybe they can do it. I would be impressed. Pass turn, here's a 5/5. That's the play pattern right there. Pass turn, okay, here's a 5/5. If I just Gruesome Realization their board, I am no longer scared at all of Ashnod. And then I can also play Skullflare this turn instead of a 5/5. This is instant speed though, so they can just sack Ashnod and make a 3/3. They don't have great blocks this turn. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm gonna keep making 5/5s. I genuinely just don't know. We're just on 5/5s. Deck. I'm gonna cast one spell all game and we'll see if we can just goldfish our way to victory. Phyrexian Processor is probably one of the best cards in the whole game if that is your plan, is to cast one spell all game and win. Phyrexian Processor is not a bad one to choose, if that's what you're trying to do. And a nice mid-range mana cost, just costs 4, doesn't cost like 7 mana, like some more difficult to beat cards like Nicol Bolas or anything like that. One you can cast a lot earlier. Still pretty much takes over the game. Does atrociously good things. Okay. When my opponent gets to the point where they have multiple 1/1s on the board, that's where I'm even happier to just skip a turn of 5/5s. And they're tapped out now as well, so they can't use the altar, so yeah, this is an easy realization. No longer gold fishing, we're going to kill Ashnod and the Death Toucher. Still a little worried about my life total. I'll keep 1 5/5 back, I guess. Put them to 9 and play the Skull Flyer. Strongbull's pretty scary, because they've got a lot of random ways to get little Power Stones and doohickeys to throw at me with it. That's going to be their best bet to win. It's going to be hard to break through my board with a Phyrexian Processor going. If I hit a land, I'll have enough mana to use an Emergency Weld and cast the Phyrexian Processor. So I think I'm going to trade Skullflayer pretty highly, especially because I don't have like any creatures in grave, because I haven't cast any creatures. I've cast 1 Processor. Ooh, Battlefield Butcher. That's a card that can kill me without attacking into my board state, so that might draw the removal here. They can't quite afford to use it right now, but I guess it has hexproof because of the boots. That's bad. Giving that hexproof is really, really bad for me. So I have to be on the aggro here. I have to kill them with these 5/5 somehow before this thing kills me. Oh, yikes. Gotta attack kind of hard here. Got double Rager to work with Trench Stalker to get some life gain. Maybe I'm playing a Trench Stalker instead of a 5/5, play a 4/5 instead of a 5/5, that's not that much worse. Let's play a 4/5 instead of a 5/5 so we can get some lifelink going. Throw the damage on the Strongbull. They only have 1 mana to sack towards it, so we can definitely kill it. I guess I could Overwhelming Remorse to like kill their whole board here. Keep all the 5/5s, put them to 4 life. I don't have the mana for anything else. That is really tempting. I'm not gonna do it though. We know they have a Death Toucher in hand for 2 at least. They're still down to 4 life here. They're still dead to anything but my Skull Flare hitting them. There's the War Plow for the Death Toucher. They can always sacrifice their Powerstone to get another 3/3 here. They can even sack the Swiftfoot Boots to get another 3/3, and now they have a Scrap Trawler to work with it. So when they do sacrifice one, they can bring back a cheaper one. Well, they only have a 4 mana one in their grave. And so they can really make blocks here. I want to gain life here, so I kind of want to just Scrapwork Rager. I want to hit more lands as well. This is one of the few games of Magic I would be really happy if I was just like draw land, draw land, draw land, draw land. Because I'm trying to get to like 1,000,000 mana to pay for Processor and playing more creatures at the same time. Send in the squad. is all fine and dandy. I guess a 1/1 death touch and a 1/1 aren't that much different right now. I can get the Trench Stalker back to hand for later. I'm at 15 life. I don't really need it anywhere near as badly as I did before. But it's still nice to have. I'll do this. Now if they have artifact removal to blow up the processor, they can definitely blow it up. So I'm opening myself up to that, but they're at 4 life. Very wide board. We have 2 creatures big enough to kill them individually. How did the altar get tapped there? Oh, they can only make... Oh, I was wrong about the altar. They can only make the zombies as a sorcery. That is significantly worse than I thought it was. But yeah, Phyrexian Processor's just going to run away with it this game. So they can get the mana at instant speed, but they can only get the zombies at sorcery speed. That's very interesting to split it up like that. I think that makes it a little extra confusing. Obviously, it's better in terms of power level than if they made both abilities sorcery, but I almost think I would rather both abilities be sorcery just so that it's a lot simpler. Alright. I see. So they can't make blockers at instant speed. That is really important to know once we get into the drafts that matter a lot on my personal account, so I can try to get as much gems as possible. Make sure I don't lose any games because I thought my opponent could make 3/3 blockers. I've probably lost some games because I thought they could do that at instant speed at some point during all these early access drafts. Right, so 2-0 to start it off. And this deck has been pretty good. Phyrexian Processor is obviously completely ridiculous, and we'll see if we can keep it up. We're against Mr. Metronome now. One of the Lords of Limited, I believe, from that podcast here. Get a Thraxo Demon to start it off. Mr. Metronome is on blue-red. That's probably an annoying deck. Blue-red spells, bounce a lot of stuff, shoot a lot of stuff. Tempo me out of the game real quick. Get in for 2. Draw some cards. Swamp, swamp. I mean, I'll take it. I've got a 6-drop in hand. About as many swamps as I need for now, though, unless I draw into a Phyrexian Processor or something. I can only make the Cinder Maw a 2/1, which would trade with Thraxodemon. Probably rather just play a Rager Pass. There's a Phyrexian Processor. That's a thing. Taken more damage this game, though, because I've lost some life already, and I'm about to lose more life here to this Cinder Maw beating me up. They're going to shoot one of my creatures and ruin my day. Still stop some damage this way. Plus I get more creatures in my grave, which makes my other removal cheaper if I draw into it. Oh no, we're just going to trade. Very down with it. Very down with that jam. Wing Commando. Exactly small enough to get booped. And we pray. I'm gonna pay 7. I'm gonna pay 7. I'm gonna pay 7 against a red deck that can have haste creatures and shoot me in the face. I get wild with it. Mr. Metronome is gonna just blow it up. Destroy an artifact. Simple. Nice and easy. Get that out of here. I don't want to deal with that. I do have Emergency Weld now, though, so I can replay it again, but then I don't have the life to pay into it anymore. That's for sure. Ooh, Strongbowl's really bad for me. Definitely can't let that thing stick around forever. 6 mana. I could Emergency Weld here. I weld a Thraxodemon or some nonsense just so I have more blockers. I'll pick up a Rager. I've got enough mana to do it. I might as well get more blockers right now. Yeah, we really need to draw like a Corrupt. If I draw a Corrupt, I don't think there's any way we can lose. Unless Mr. Metronome now top decks artifact removal. But he didn't have it initially, so we get at least one 7/7 from this processor. Alright, we're going to get two 7/7s. Don't have the mana to use that, and play a Scrapwork Rager, so we're just going to use the processor. Third Path Iconoclast into the Smash to Dust or whatever to blow it up. That would even out the game. We wouldn't lose, but it would even things out. Alright, no removal for it. Now I have the mana to play Rager and use Processor. Still kind of digging for a Corrupt, so that's probably what we're doing. Stern Lesson. They're going to draw two cards, get a Powerstone, get a 1/1 to go ahead and chump block. Still digging for that removal, or maybe a burn spell to kill us with. One extra damage isn't going to make a significant difference between 10 and 9 life, so I am going to play Rager and make a 7/7. That is not a Corrupt still. I'm never going to feel safe. I guess if I draw Corrupt, it's not even about feeling safe anymore. Now I just shoot Mr. Metronome in the face. For 8. I will cast a Corrupt in one of these games. I shouldn't be complaining, though. I've got to cast 2 Phyrexian Processors now, and it's been completely busted each time. If you open up a Phyrexian Processor in your pre-release, probably good. Probably good, if you can draw it. The card is absolutely silly. I think it's one of the very first, not one of the very first banned cards, but an early on card that got banned. It wasn't until like Urza's Saga or something like that. But I think it got banned because I think there were like these matchups where it was just Phyrexian Processor decks and everybody would always pay just like 19 life. Or they'd play like a life gain spell and then they pay 20 and then just attack one time. They're like just Phyrexian Processor mirrors. That's something I've heard of happening. Alright, Obliterating Bolt the Rager to exile it so we don't get to unearth it, and that gets a blocker out of the way. That's not good for us. That's for sure. Metronome is setting up to make a really explosive attack with a Penrigan Strongbow here. It's probably the opportunity here where Mr. Metronome tries to find lethal. Mr. Metronome has the mana and the artifacts to make the Strongbow just massive, especially with that spell alongside it as well. Only 2 mana up now, though. Well, we make the 7/7. We block the Strongbow, because that's going to do the most damage by far. That's going to be doing 2 damage to our face. No sacks here, okay. And then a Monastery Swift Spear, so Metronome has the 3 chump blockers required to survive this turn. I think I Rager, because I have multiple outs that will immediately kill Mr. Metronome. That is not one of them. To say 1 removal spell and Metronome's dead on the spot. Instead, we just attack here, force the 3 chumps. Hope for no burn from Mr. Metronome. See what's going on. Mr. Metronome will scoop them up. We are going to be... I've forgotten numbers. I don't remember how many games I've played. 3? 3-0 is correct. Undefeated with the mono black Phyrexian processor deck so far. Incredible stuff as we head into game 4. Well, 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 look who showed up again, Phyrexian processor, and who showed up for the first time, Corrupt. If I draw nothing but swamps, I will be tremendously happy. If I can't draw swamps, we're going to have some issues here, but let's see. There's swamp number 1. We're getting to Phyrexian processor minimum. Problem is our opponent's already put a creature on the board, so we're going to have some life total pressure, which makes processor a little harder to use. Well, no! Oh no. Oh no. Okay, well... we can't put a Phyrexian processor on a board that has a Haywire Might on it. That is for sure. The Haywire Might can sacrifice itself to exile the processor, so... our opponent's on black for reanimation as well. So I actually don't know if we're like home free by killing this Haywire Might, but maybe. At least for now. And that can exile. I think the most likely way that our processor is dying is that our opponent emergency welds their Haywire Might and then just exiles it. So I don't think I need to hold on to emergency weld to play around my opponent destroying processor, because right now it looks way more likely that my processor is going to get exiled. So let's just use the weld right now. And our opponent looks mono black so far, so very, very possible to very possible they don't have destroy target artifact, they only have exile. And now we're in a great position. We have the Corrupt to gain the life back, and what I noticed earlier in last game that's really nice about paying 7 into the processor is it makes it like exactly 3 hits to kill. I guess my opponent's at 22, so maybe I should have paid 8. Or they could just have 2 copies of Haywire Might. Well, we're gonna get 1/7/7. Oh, they don't have another green. They don't have a green in the first place. I just realized, yeah, my opponent's not on mono black. They played a Haywire Might earlier. Okay. No graveyard recursion one time? Corrupt the Haywire Might? Feels like where it's at. I don't know. I gain 6 life when I do that, so now even if processor dies, I'm not that far below in life total here. As you can tell, my brain is still mush, as I said earlier. 8 hours into the drafts today. I would be really bad at a really long tournament. Alright, take 1. I mean, let's be honest, my game's always mush from game 1 of draft 1. Alright, so they're getting chump blockers here, which is good for them. Got a Carrion Locust to exile one of the mites, but they could still get the other one back. This is the only thing that I can cast and still afford to make another 7/7, so I'll do it. But it's definitely not like a phenomenal play. It's just the play that we have. If they only had 1 Haywire Might, I would have been really happy with that play. So opponents on black, white, and green. They play a Plains here. So that is the second color we've seen, and Might Stone and Weak Stone. Probably draw 2. There's nothing great to give -5/-5 to. Unless they really want to kill the flyer. Yeah, draw 2. Digging for removal for our artifact. Now that we know that they're on white, ooh, no, they can mill us? That's a pretty scary retro artifact. If I had that in the same deck as Phyrexian Processor, your deck is gone immediately. But that's really bad. Just as they chump block us, they mill us. Very, very threatening. I can play a 4-drop and still use Processor, so Probably play Rager even though I'm getting milled here. It's only 4 drop. Overwhelming Remorse is definitely a good draw. Okay, so they're going to block and we mill 4 if they block with both. Alright, yep, we're getting milled 4 for sure. Unless our opponent has a bunch of reanimation, they might mill themselves a bunch. Nope, we are going to get milled. 1, 2, 3. We hit Swamp Swamp and Gnawing Vermin. And Clay Revenant is going to mill 1 more card. We mill a Goring Warplow, sorry. Luckily for us, until we have 0 cards in our library, getting milled is just good value for us. Because until we're out of cards and we just die because we got milled, we're making our Overwhelming Remorse cheaper. We're making our 3 mana 2/3 get multiple +1/+1 counters on it. Our opponent has drawn the Recursion to cast the Might now. So they do get to kill the Phyrexian Processor, but I have 3 7/7s out of it, so it was well worth it. Well worth it so far. Yeah, Altar of Dementia is a really scary card. If you can just cast 20 power worth of creatures throughout the game, your opponent's just dead. Because milling 20 is like, it's going to be a whole deck by the time somebody's drawn 13 cards throughout the game. Seems like a reasonable amount of time to go for it. So luckily, because we have 3 7/7s on this board, I think we can outrace the mill, but it's still scary. I mean, we have them dead on board to Overwhelming Remorse. If they can't play another creature here. Actually, even before it, right? They block a 7/7, take 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. They're dead on board even before Remorse. I'm still going to cast it to be just extra certain, but my stomach is growling. It is past dinner time now. Alright, I'll exile that attack with everybody and we will close this one out. Get milled 3 more. Ooh, Scrapbook Rager. Send in the squad. You know, that's probably why... Oh, they're not dead, are they? Oh no, they're still dead. They wouldn't have been dead if I didn't Overwhelming Remorse. Because they would have chumped. And they would be at 4 life still. So, well, good thing we remorsed. Yeah, but I think maybe that's why Wizards put some powerful mill artifacts in the retro artifact frame. There's Millstone, there's Altar of Dementia, and there's Keening Stone. And I feel like the reason that they put some powerful mill artifacts in the retro frame is that mill actually plays really interesting in this format. Some decks want to mill themselves, and even if you have a really powerful mill card that can mill your opponent super quickly, sometimes your opponent is just going to get benefits out of it throughout the game. So, but another just really good decisions on the retro artifacts that they put in this set. I think they all play, I mean, a lot of them play really, really cool, really interestingly in the format. I'm very, very into it. I think there were definitely some cards in the Mystical Archives. Actually, a lot of cards in the Mystical Archives, in my opinion, that just didn't do anything. Feels like there's less when it comes to retro artifacts that are like that. You know, like cards like they put Duress in from the Mystical Archives, and it's like, okay, cool. That could have just been in the main set, and that would have made sense. Or maybe not Duress. I think there is a Duress in the Mystical Archives, but then also, like, thinking a Disfigure to win here. No, they just want a Powerstone. Maybe post-combat, so they get their Powerstone and kill Skullflare. But yeah, it just felt like the Mystical Archives had a lot of cards that could have just... Yeah, they are going to Disfigure post-combat. Mystical Archives had a lot of cards that could have just been printed in the main set without blinking an eye. You know? That just don't play particularly interestingly, like Snakeskin Veil, Lightning Bolt's really strong, but it doesn't play super interestingly in Strixhaven. But these artifacts like Chromatic Star, like that's not super strong, but it still plays really cool in the set. With the ways that you have to sacrifice artifacts and stuff. And it's like a little mana fixer if you need that. It's just cool in general. Just gonna curve out well here, focus on Corrupt as a pretty big win con, pretty big way to turn the game in our favor. Kill their biggest card, gain a ton of life, or because we have another removal spell with Overwhelming Remorse, we could end up using Corrupt as a finisher, try to do a ton of damage to our opponent's face. No, I don't care that much about taking 3 when I have Corrupt in hand. I'm probably very, very cool with just trading damage at all points of this game. Excuse me. Alright, they're going to filter the Chromatic Star into a black mana and draw a card. So they have 5 mana up. Oh yeah, the Star does play really well with Power Stones because you get to filter the Power Stone into a mana you can spend on anything. They didn't need to there, they were mainly just drawing a card, but it's still pretty cool. That is a thing. Attack with everybody. Trade one of our 2/2s into the 3/1. They're going to trade the 2/2 that doesn't unearth. Makes sense. Opponent's down to 13. Don't really want to jam Corrupt at their face yet. I think the game plan is going to be to corrupt their face for lethal eventually. Currently at 6, it'll be 7 damage next turn. Goring Warplow. If I exile that, hit them for 4, they're at 9 life, which isn't quite dead to corrupt, but it's very, very close. It's dead to corrupt the turn after this, and I get to hold up a Disfigure as interaction this turn. So, Disfigure something, and then kill them with Corrupt next turn is the plan. I still think it's really funny that I decided to be mono black before I even knew there was going to be a Corrupt in the draft pod. They die to Corrupt if I hit them with either of these creatures, so I'm just going to attack both. I could Disfigure pre-combat so they can't make a block here. Actually, that's probably for the best, because they might just kill Locust with an instant. Yep, that was a bad play by my part. But all I need to kill them with Corrupt is 1 land, so I can just draw another card off Rager next turn and dig for that land if I don't draw into it. So not likely to matter. Hero of the Dunes is an incredible, incredible card. 5 mana for a 3/2 that resurrects something that costs 3 or less from their graveyard and gives all of their cheap creatures an extra power. Super good. All the build around uncommons in this set are just really, really powerful. Realization's cool. Alright, well, these are not lands. We are not in it for the lethal Corrupt. Although I am hitting them for 2, so I do just kill them with Corrupt next turn. Maybe I'm supposed to kill the 1/1, play it really safe, but I'm only taking 4 damage on board. Doubt they make it 9 damage out of nowhere here. And again, if they don't kill me right now, Corrupt will kill them. Yep, that is not life gain, and here's Corrupt to the face. And there we go. I think that should be 5-0 now for the Mono Black Menace, the devastating CPU deck. Here we are now against the Ham TV. Ham TV is a streamer that focuses on Magic Online, but does play a lot of Limited, a whole ton of drafts. So very, very good player. We really need to hit a land here. I honestly, I'm really tired. I was not paying attention to this hand. I probably, maybe, but probably should have mulliganed. Alright, milled 0 lands. Very big fan of that. Arena being an absolute snitch about this Disfigure in my hand. That was a really good mill for us. We milled 2 non-lands, so we're 2 cards closer to lands, and our Overwhelming Remorse is cheaper, and we hit the land. Beautiful. Alright, well, we exile the 1 creature in their grave here, I guess. Doesn't unearth, but Got a nice little flyer. Energy Refractor from Ham TV. Got the 4th mana, super into it, Gigamole time probably. Again, the only thing we'd be sad about is if we mill the Phyrexian Processor, and even if we do, we could draw into the card that we have that can bring any artifact back from grave. Alright, some creatures. I'll take it. Take one of the War Plows. Now our Overwhelming Remorse only costs 2 mana. This is getting absurdly efficient. Big old 2/5 from our opponent. Well, never really attacking into that on the ground, am I? Carrion Locust is kind of just going to do all of the work this game, it looks like. Let's just tap out here, I think. Sure. We can cast removal spells after the Ham plays creatures. We don't need to kill them to turn their cast or anything. 5 mana now, only 1 mana away from the Argivian Avenger doing some stuff. Don't really have great attacks with the Death Toucher because it just trades into the 1/1 here. Yikes. Corlos Rock, hello. I can't actually win this fight with a Disfigure. I thought I might be able to do the math wrong. Actually, I can. I should have done this pre-combat. I'd still trade here if I'm interested in that. Phyrexian Processor? Let's Disfigure as well. Let's keep the Locust on board. But yeah, I should have done that before they could declare blocks. I would have gotten 2 more damage in. That was loose. Angel of Synthesis. Worst, it's a 3/3 menace. Okay, that's not horrible. Mainly getting that good enter the battlefield effect. Get to draw a card, discard a card for some value. Cool. Goring Warplow doing its job, holding things off. We've got an Emergency Weld if this gets countered, and we don't have to pay the life until we know if it gets countered. A 7. Nice even number there. I just like it. I don't know. Lucky 7. Evenly divisible. 3 swings at your opponent's face. 2 swings after they take this hit. Oh. I don't know, it still kind of makes sense here. 1/3 of our opponent's life total, 1/2 of it at the time. Oh, get rid of the Death Toucher. Attack us really aggressively now that we're down to 13. That's a thing you can definitely do. Alright, sack the Courier to draw a card. They can unearth it here to still attack with it this turn and then sack it to draw another card, but they are not going to. They're going to unearth it later to give that Synthesis Menace again, I suppose. Let's make sure that thing dies, I guess. This thing can get really high power if they dump a bunch of mana into it. Overwhelming Remorse to kill our creature for free here. Might Remorse in response to their Remorse. I'm in love with it, but it's probably fine. Don't have to deal with Menace anymore. I can definitely chump block the Retrieval Agent. I can also just block it with a 7/7 at that rate. And that's the plan now, just keep making 7/7s. But I can't block a Menace with a single 7/7. I mean, we try to do the thing. Alright, bounce it. Kill one of our 7/7s here. Go for the block. I don't want to take a million. Weak stone subjugation. Keep the Phyrexian processor tapped. Very nice stuff from the ham. This will be our first opponent who actually beats the Phyrexian processor. Neuner is very bad for us. That is horrifically bad for us. Kind of want the Locust to die now so I can exile their card from grave. Cool. This could be dumb. Probably not the right play. But I don't want them to draw an additional card next turn. And trigger the Gurgling Anointer. Yeah, I was probably supposed to just play Avenger. My brain is so mush at this point, I definitely can't, cannot formulate the right lines here. Oh, top deck Turquoise probably really strong. That's a lot of text. So it draws them like extra cards, I guess. So I block and take 4? Sure. Tradesies. Down to 4 life. If I draw into Corrupt, I can still win. And try to do that. Another Rager is not a Corrupt. And double block a 2/4 with 2 of these, take 2. Locust still doesn't help me block. I can already do 7 damage with a Corrupt. You need to hit them once for Corrupt to be lethal off the top. Alright. All in on Corrupt off the top. We'll see. Not a Corrupt. And if I play this Rager, I die. Takes 3 attacks to kill them with Locust, and we die in 2. I'm probably on block sack at this point. Not a Corrupt. That is the 9th mana though, which means I can sack during my turn if that matters. Which it might. I think it does matter, because I just straight die here if I pass, right? Block, block, take 2. I die if I pass the turn, so I need to sack right now and hope to get Corrupt. Gruesome Realization, that doesn't do it. Nope. Really good response to Phyrexian Processor this game from our opponent. The bounce spell to kill a 7/7, and then the subjugation to lock it down. Brutal stuff there. Maybe could have still won the game there if I didn't go for like the fancy line of exiling the Unearth card, if I just went for the big blocker immediately. But who knows? 5-1 now, heading into game 7. Pretty nice keep here. Turn 2 Warplow into Locust into Rager to curve out. Angel of Synthesis. I would highly prefer if my opponent does not draw an extra card every turn. Because if they do, that will be a menacing eat stick, and if they don't, I can just block with the Death Toucher. But I'm going to assume we're in for a pretty bad time here. Turn 2 of Angel of Synthesis is a really, really threatening start to a game if you just follow it up with a bunch of cantrips. The 2-mana 3/3 Menace. Alright, no cantrip this turn, but they are going to disfigure my War Plow, which shuts off my blocks. Thopter Mechanic is another just really good aggro card. It's a 2/1 that replaces itself with a 1/1 flyer no matter what. And if they draw additional cards, if they draw their second card each turn, it gets a +1/+1 counter. So if they play any Scrapwork Ragers, we're just very, very, very having a bad time. Combat Courier, same. Very bad time. Draw the card off the Courier to make the Evangel a 3/3 Menace and the Thopter Mechanic a permanent 3/2. Probably disfigure the Mechanic. Another disfigure, really nice. Black was definitely wide open in their pod, as it was in ours. Much as I'd love to Rager, I'm just going to die if this thing hits me forever, so have your Thopter before that gets any bigger. That's going to be a 4-power creature next turn. We need to draw some really good stuff from this point on to counteract the absurdly aggressive curve from our opponent with the Draw 2 deck. Yeah, that kills the flyer, but I'd rather just play a Rager and set up to double block this Evangel of Synthesis. Flash in a Koilos Rock, and we're taking a lot of damage in the sky. Definitely need to draw into some removal. Some of our exile removal spells that we've got in here, or our Corrupt. And they have a trick here almost definitely if they're sending the Evangel in to win this combat as well. Yep, that is just a mountain of efficient black removal. And we got a Swamp. Yep, that's game. Can't afford to cast anything and expect to draw a Corrupt here to kill something and gain enough life to stay in it, because we won't have any mana left if we cast a draw spell, so brutal game there. That was an incredible blue-black draw 2 deck. Disfigure, go for the throat after the curve of the 2 very, very powerful uncommon build-arounds for the archetype. Here we are in what could be the final game of Magic for the day. We are 5-2 now. If we lose this, we'll be 5-3 and out. Really fun mono-black deck here. Honestly, I would almost call it like a perfect mono-black deck. If we had 3 copies of Corrupt, it'd be the perfect mono-black deck. Unfortunately, we only found 1 in our entire draft. So that has been the biggest flaw. Corrupt would have been an exceptional draw in both of the games that we've lost today. So it would have been nice to have a duplicate of it. Make it more likely to draw into it. Well, Quarter Calls is curving out pretty aggressively here. Let's just make sure to get a blocker to trade off. They're on the green-blue Powerstone deck here. Alright, no attacks into the Death Toucher. Good start for us that's going to hold off the fort. Or hold down the fort. Nothing turn 4. We'll play our Ragers. Get some value. There's a Disfigure for us. I'm into it. Double Steel Seeker. As soon as they start playing artifacts, they're going to draw so many lands. It's kind of nuts. I kind of like Gigamole here with a Skullflayer in hand. But Rager could hit a land to play another Disfigure if I hit Swamp. Well, all I have are swamps, but if I do hit a land, I can go Rager Disfigure. Probably attack with this one. And Disfigure in combat. Yeah, I mean, I think I want to be open to potentially Swamp hold up Disfigure. Nice. Perfectly rewarded there. Never didn't have it. Third Path Savant is not an artifact. I don't need to respond to that. Cool. There's a Corrupt this game. Love it. Love it. Got some creatures in this graveyard. These are some pretty wild ones. Both of these in hand's pretty good, but a 3/4 on board's also fine, and it's attacking in. Yeah, I feel like I have plenty of stuff to cast without them, and this way I get to have a 3/4. Coastal Bulwark. 3/3 for 2. Oh, and it's an artifact. I should have killed one of the Steel Seekers in response. Probably, possibly. Alright, surveil both cards into the grave. Might kill the Alloy Animist. Disfigures a trick still seems potentially good. Alright, let's get some self-mill from a Gnawing Vermin and see what we hit. Another Gixian Skullflayer that I can pick up with my emergency weld. It's very cool. Alright, I guess I've got a Disfigure during combat. Probably doesn't stack up super well. They probably just block with a 3/3 and a 2/3. Yep. So we kill the 2/3 because it's got good abilities. Sure. This makes Overwhelming Remorse only cost 1 mana, so now I'm holding up a Disfigure or an Overwhelming Remorse, and the Skullflayer is just going to get bigger and bigger throughout the game. Zephyr Sentinel, sure. Return the Coastal Bulwark to hand, so they can recast it and trigger the Steel Seekers. I mean, this isn't phenomenal, but kind of like shutting off the Steel Seeker plays. Alright, they're going to go ahead and surveil now. We've got Skullflayer as the main play. I think I just play another Skullflayer here. Could hold up Corrupt to kill the Sentinel immediately. Feels unnecessary. How do they kill the 3/4? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, I get a lot of action out of this, and I can just figure worst case scenario. Alright, this feels super good to me. Double Skullflayer time, let's go. Now we've got Corrupt mana. Don't need to hold up blocks. Hoylos Rock, hello there. I have a Disfigure for you. You do anything too bad for me. Is it 4 power here? 5 toughness? And I just disfigure the rock. My creature doesn't die now. Alright, and there's the concession from Court of Calls. That is gonna be game. And we are now 6-2, meaning we've got a final boss coming up. Win or lose, this will be the final game of Magic for today and for the early access event as a whole. Time for game number 9, win or lose. Final game of Magic. Okay, so opponent is on the play. We don't have anything till turn 3, but I'm still pretty into this hand. Rager on 4 is always great, and we've got one of our great removal spells in hand. Opponent is on red, so they could be pretty aggressive. We might just get aggro curbed out of it. Nope, no plays the first 2 turns. That makes me feel nice and comfy. Gnawing Vermin ourselves here. Swamp, swamp. Alright. Doesn't really mean much. Doesn't, no abilities in grave, but it's not like we milled anything that we really wanted to draw, so kind of just shuffle our library there kind of thing. Alright, opponent really wants some some Power Stones here. They're going to shoot our 1/1 for a Power Stone. Fair enough, they might have some scary stuff to ramp into. We've got a Phyrexian Processor now to play turn 4. And if our opponent doesn't get like a decent aggressive creature on board, I'm going to be pretty happy with it. Yeah, 2/3. It's a fine creature, but I think I'm good to pay 7 here and do the thing. Please, no artifact removal. Will this be the second time our processor gets blown up? I guess it's never been blown up, but it's been locked down to where it can't untap. Okay, obviously we just hold the 4 mana needed to make a 7/7 here. A 7/7 is more impactful than every other play we have the option of. What is this? 1/2 Flash Flyer. They can cast colorless and artifact spells as though they had flash. When you cast a spell, if it's more mana was spent than that, then Urza's power, you get a counter on it. Okay. I'm not a fan of that. That's a flyer. And I'm at 11. And there's an energy refractor. That's a 2 power flyer. Make it a 3 power flyer if they play a 3 mana artifact this next turn, and they can use the refactor with these Power Stones to put that mana into anything. That's an even bigger Urza flyer. And the board state is wide. This is absurdly aggressive. Our opponent might actually just outrace the processor, not even need to blow it up here. I'm gonna exile this thing. Mine Worker. Okay. And they could just play that post-combat. Same thing as flashing it in. But flashing it in is fancier. We are definitely not attacking now. We might just be dead. If I draw into my -1/-1 to everybody, I can win this game. If I don't, I'm probably just falling too far behind here. After that wild turn from my opponent. No attacks, I'm into it. Very into no attacks. Right, blow up Locust, do some damage to me, sure. At least they didn't hit me for a million with all those attacks. Definitely gotta hold these things on blocks. I mean, if they went for attacks, I'd be at 5 now. Alright, I've taken 5 more, I'd be at 4. Puts me really, really dead to burn spells. But they would have lost a creature, for sure. They may want to preserve. I don't know what's happening right now. Oh, I guess they're just trying to get the mana out of the refractor to cast this thing. Return all non-land permanents to their owner's hand and end the turn. Well, that's a very, very good response to a Phyrexian Processor. I think we lose. Oh, this is like that one game last draft where I played the card that exiles a card and all cards with the same name. And against the card that makes 2 copies of itself. Just like the pre-sideboarded perfect answer. Yeah, we're definitely just dead now. We've just got to play a regular game to the best of our abilities. Play a Gigamole. I can get a Skull Flare, but I'll have to discard a card if I do. It's probably fine. Processor is not going to be good for us. Discard the Phyrexian Processor. Skull Flare does actually look pretty good. We want to play as many cheap creatures as possible. We want to hit a land and go 3-drop, 2-drop. Just play 1,000 blockers is our out. Alright, at least our opponent's deploying the cards slowly here. We're definitely deploying them slowly, though. Still no land drop here. I'm just going to mill more lands if I Gigamole, but let's do it. No way to cast 2 spells this turn. That's a cheap creature. I would like to do that. Oh, I'm going to have to discard a card again because I can't deploy more than 1 card out of my hand. The mana is so bad right now. Alright, goodbye, Avenger. I'm so jealous. They have 9 lands. No, they have 8 lands and a Powerstone. Alright, Swiftfoot boots. Got the refractor to unearth that. Fine, whatever, trade. They can only unearth it one time, so. That killed for now. There we go, beautiful. Now I can 3-drop and 2-drop. Actually, maybe rather have a 2-2 than a 1-1 Death Touch here. The only thing a 1-1 Death Touch blocks ball is the 2-3. Yeah. 2-2. Mind's Eye. Oh, Lord. Now, that's basically Joda's Codex. For 1 mana every turn, they get to draw an extra card. Relatively bad for me. Joda's Codex does take over games real quickly. Well, at least they didn't replay their Unearth card this turn, so I do get to just get rid of that. That feels pretty good. I'm going to deploy a Warplow as well. Pass the turn. Having a Skull Flare sitting here getting bigger and bigger feels nice. Third Path Savants for my opponent's gotta feel really good. Now they can just dump all their mana to that, draw an extra 3 cards per turn, because they draw 2 off the Savants and 1 off the Mind's Eye. Just gotta draw their whole library. We have to just play enough blockers and stuff that my opponent can't find a way to get 9 damage in, and we just mill them out eventually. Yep, because that Savant has hexproof, so we're not going to remorse that. I'm pretty interested in playing a lifelinker, so I'm going to get this on the board. I could play a Rager, because it's the only thing that I can play while still holding up an Overwhelming Remorse. I think I need to set up to be able to gain some life, to really slow my opponent down. Gilded Lotus, okay. Draw even more cards off the Savants, or be able to play the cards they draw faster. Okay, opponent has like all the mana in their deck at this point, it feels like. We've got another Swamp here, that's good. Draw a card off the Gilded Lotus. They're down to 13 cards. My little gnawing rat thing can mill my opponent. Oh, I already played it this game, never mind. Maybe if I get Graveyard Recursion, I'll cast it on my opponent here. So 6 mana means I get to play Trench Stalker and hold up the Overwhelming Remorse, and then I can set up for life gain the turn after this. Gain a ton of life this next turn. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 power total. They can try to kill the Skull Flare. I can exile a card and they only have 5 power. Alright, they're just going to chump block. I thought this game was super over after the bounce spell, and my opponent's drawing an absolutely insane amount of cards, but I don't know if it's over. I don't know if it's over here, because if we get another turn, right, the Trench Stalkering it up is insane. I'm going to try to exile this Koilos Rock to make it a lot more likely I get another turn after this. Draw 2 cards, they're looking for an answer to the Overwhelming Remorse. They don't find a counterspell, so we exile the flyer here. They will not be shooting us for 3 in the sky. And yeah, if they're not killing us this turn, we're going to gain 8 life next turn and attack with a lot of nonsense. They got to get rid of these Trench Stalkers or it's going to be a really bad time for them next turn. Combat Courier. Alright, a good chump blocker. You're down to 10 cards in library. Disfigure's a beautiful draw. Beautiful, beautiful draw. It'd be wonderful to do that during combat. I would rather play a permanent Rager than an Unearthed one right now. So that's what I will do. If my opponent had a bunch of blue mana up, it'd probably be better to just Unearth this, because they can't counter an Unearth as easily as you can counter a spell, because Unearth is an ability, not a spell. We do the thing. Gain a ton of life here. Turn the corner. Oh, they can sack the Combat Courier? Oh, they don't have the mana up for it. So I do gain 8, but I wasn't thinking of that. If I wanted to make sure that I gained 8 life and they had the mana up to sack that card, I should have tried to disfigure it pre-combat. Alright, opponent's at 3, we're at 16, we have the bigger board state. Opponent has way more cards, but it's looking pretty possible we just find lethal. Okay, whenever they draw cards, they put loyalty counters on that. If they get to 12, they win, basically. Other than that, it makes like a 2-2 where it draws a card.
Faced with tragedy, even
Alright.
observers need to take action. Nobody knows the past.
Whenever you draw a card, put a +1/+1 counter on this. Third Path Iconoclast, they're just trying to play as many blockers as possible, so they don't just die this turn. Blackblade Reforged, I did not know that was a retro artifact. That is a devastating one. Okay. We might lose. I didn't think there were a lot of ways my opponent could like definitely survive this turn, but this board state's one of them. Maybe I should have just disfigured this Iconoclast. I can keep hitting with Trench Stalkers, so like, even though my opponent can't lose, I can't lose either. Right? Let's get our opponent to the point where they mill themselves. They're down to 6 cards. I don't know who's going to win this game now. It's really anyone's game. I've milled myself a lot. My opponent has not milled themselves. They've exclusively drawn cards, but they're still down to 6 in library. Like, I milled myself 6 off double Gigamole. That means they've drawn at least 6 more cards than me, plus the 4. They've drawn like 10 extra cards minimum this game. Oh my god. I guess we're just trying to draw Corrupt, right? I haven't milled Corrupt. Have I? Oh, I did. I milled Corrupt. Oh, that's really sad. I can't pick up Corrupt with Emergency Weld. I can pick up my Flyer, though, with that card. And that's a pretty good deal. Opponent at 3 life. Anything I can pick up that matters here. The Flyer matters a lot. They still don't have a Flyer down. And I would do 1 damage when I play it. No, they don't have a creature in their grave, so I wouldn't do a damage when I play it. So I would have to attack them with it twice, so that doesn't actually matter a tremendous amount. Gnawing Vermin to mill them to. Maybe I pick up the Gnawing Vermin and just mill them to. I mean, that seems somewhat reasonable to me. I have the mana to do that and disfigure this turn, so I can do my full combat exactly how I... Oh no, gruesome realization. I think I just realized that I won the game. That's a good realization to have in a situation like this. Forgot about that thing. That's lethal. That'll do it. And there's the concession from our opponent. Really excellent way to end the early access Premier drafts. We end with a draft where we get the maximum number of games. play out 9 games of Magic today, and it's another 7-win run. I've had an excellent time with the Brothers War, and I hope you've enjoyed this early access journey with me. If you enjoyed these videos, make sure to, as I am, thank Wizards of the Coast for inviting me to the early access event again this time around. So disclaimer, once again, everything you see me playing with today was provided to me by Wizards of the Coast. But yeah, I've had a really excellent time with the Brothers War early access drafts, and I'm having a super fun time with the format in general. I hope you're enjoying it as well. It will be out on Arena tomorrow. Pre-release weekends will have already happened by the time that you've seen this video, so maybe you've played a local game store pre-release. If you have and you had a good time, then that's great. I'd like to hear about it in the comments below if you're interested in talking about the set, because I'm super interested in the set. It's a super fun time so far. Maybe, maybe when everything lands, there'll be some archetype that's way too good that takes over or something, but right now it's too early in the draft format to know, and it's wide open. It's really early in the format, and it feels like there's just a lot of fun stuff you can do. The retro framed artifacts are absolute bangers. We've played a variety of decks over the early access events, and I'm ready to play a variety more when the set launches on Arena tomorrow. So, as always, thank you all very much for watching this video. There will be several more in the near future, plenty more Brothers War drafts coming out. Tomorrow is the launch of Brothers War on Arena for everybody to play it, and alongside the launch, they're doing a free midweek Magic Phantom Sealed event of the Brothers War so that everybody gets to play the format for free at least one time before you actually pay any gold or gems into an event, so you get some experience in the format absolutely for free. So I highly recommend hopping into that. Format's been really cool so far. Hopefully it stays that way. But once again, that's going to end today's video. I hope you all enjoyed it. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again soon for some more Magic Arena.